guys, this is Ron. So the next data type that we're going to discuss is the dictionary. So the dictionary is pretty cool. It allows you to take some type of key and map it to a value. So as long as I know the key, I can retrieve the value. So for example, let's say we wanted to create a student record, and this record is going to hold information about the student. So maybe we want it to hold their grades, maybe we want it to hold what grade they're in, so on and so forth. So the first thing I need to do is create my dictionary. And I can do that by the curly brackets here. So if I do a type on student, it is typed dict. And the way that I'm going to get values into it is I'm just going to specify student, and then in square brackets, I know it's a little confusing. We were using curly brackets earlier, now we're using square brackets, but once you get used to it, it's not that bad. So student, and I'm going to put my key here. So let's put Jesse. And we're going to give Jesse some grades. So we're going to specify those grades with a list. So we'll give him 100 on his first test. We'll give him an 85, 95, 90, and let's say he had a bad day, got a 75, right? So now if I look in student, what I find is my key here, and the key is always a string like this. I have a colon, and then I have the value that I specified. All right. So to retrieve that, again, all I have to do is specify my key, right? So I can put Jesse, and I'll get back my list. So you'll notice here, key, colon, value. All right. So let's go ahead and insert another student. In this case, we'll put Jenny. So we'll put some grades for Jenny as well, right? All right, so Jenny, comma, and then we have Jesse, right? So we always get the key, colon, and whatever value we specified. And then to get to our next mapping, we have the comma, we have a key, colon, and the value that we specified, right? All right, so let's specify our last student. So we have student James. James doesn't do so hot. He's missed some class. So let's say he got a 0 on his first test because he didn't show up. But when he does show up, he's pretty decent. He just needs to show up every now and then, right? So again, we have James, Jenny, and Jesse, and their corresponding grades. Now I could specify anything that I want for the values here, and we'll play around with that here in a bit. But I just kind of wanted you to get a feel for how you put data in, and now we'll work on getting the data back out. So if we do a dir on student, we'll find we have a couple of different methods that we can use. So we're going to talk a little bit about get. We'll do has key, items, keys, and values. All right. The rest of these you can feel free to look up, but we'll hit the high ones there. So one of the ways that we can retrieve is just by specifying the key. So student, we can put the key name, so Jesse, square bracket, and we're good to go. But what happens if I accidentally put a key that doesn't necessarily exist? In this case, I'm going to get a key error. And so if you're not handling your exceptions within your program, or you're handling your errors with an exception, your program is going to crash anytime you request a key that doesn't necessarily exist. So the way to get around that is with this get or has key. So maybe I just want to play it safe, and I always want to get a return regardless of whether that key exists. So I can do student dot get, and I'll specify James, and so I get James's grades there. But if I misspell James, I don't get anything back. So I didn't get an error, I didn't get anything in return. So what if I actually want to specify a return? Here I can put some type of default value. So no grades on record. And that's what I get back. So instead of getting an error and the program crashing, I'll instead get no grades on record, right? For any student where I try to look up their records, but there are no records to look up. Now, has key is going to allow me to basically make a test. So student.has key James, I get a true, right? And if that student doesn't exist, I get a false. And so what this is going to allow me to do is, if student.has key James, print, and we'll just put student James. And so I get his grades. Now, if I were to have done this with, let's say, Jams, it never executes, right? So this returns a false, which means this never gets executed, which means I avoid a crash because, again, I don't look for a key value that doesn't exist, right? All right, so that was keys, or that was has key and get. So they're gonna help you out in avoiding causing your program to have some issues. And this is, at least for me, I've run into quite a few times where that is the case. So maybe, for instance, I want to first find out, does the key exist within the dictionary? If it does, give me the return value. If it doesn't, I know I need to insert something in there, right? So depending upon what the program's function is, maybe that's exactly what I need to do to get the ball rolling. Hey, if this doesn't already exist within my dictionary, go ahead and insert it. If not, if it does exist, well then just return back to me the value that I had previously put in there. Okay, so now if we look back up, let me slide up here. We had values, and we had items, and we had keys. So if I look for keys, so student.keys, what I get back is my actual keys, right? And if I do values, I get the actual values. Now this isn't always all that useful, because again, I don't know necessarily who these grades are associated with. One of the things you'll find with dictionaries is the order that they're inserted, the order that you basically put values into the database. So if I insert a key value pair, it doesn't always end up in the same order. Dictionaries don't retain their order, unlike a list where when I put a certain grade in here, it's always going to be in this order unless I modify the list. The same doesn't hold true for dictionaries. Dictionaries, you'll find in one instance this key is first, and then after doing some things with database, you check it again, and now a different key is first. So they don't retain their values. So running student.values may not be necessarily all that useful, unless maybe in this case I wanted to get a class average. So again, all I care about are all the different grades in there, and then my function is going to chew across that and just return, hey, this is the class average. So It really depends on how you're using your database. Now, or not database, but your dictionary, right? So student items is going to return actual pairs, right? So here I have a tuple because these are the rounded brackets, and we'll talk about tuples a little bit later, but I basically have the first portion of the tuple is the key and the second portion is the value. So I end up using items quite a bit. I use keys from time to time, and I use items quite often. So for instance, maybe I just wanted to display everything within my dictionary, but I wanted it to be laid out nicely. So maybe I'll do something like this. For key comma value in student dot items. So again, student dot items is going to return first the key and secondly the value. So I have k comma v, and this basically is the tuple, right? So it's the key comma the value, and then I'm just going to print k comma v, just keep it simple. And so what I end up with is James and his grades, Jenny and her grades, Jesse and his grades, right? So pretty simple. Now what happens, let's say I wanted to get a little bit crazy. So I've got k comma v. I want my average equals, and this is going to be the sum of the values, right, divided by, we'll cast this as a float so that we get some precision in here, and we'll do the length of v. So what this is going to do is first, how many entries are in the list, right? So in James's case, it's going to send back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is going to be a 5. I'm going to convert 5 to a float, so I'm going to get 5.0. Because remember, if I take an integer and divide it by an integer, I get an integer in return, which means I lose some precision, right? Because in these grades it might not be completely equal as far as, you know, when they're divided out. Now sum of v again is going to take all of these numbers in the list, and it's gonna give me the sum of that, and again we're going to divide by the total number of entries in here. We're going to make sure it's a float, so we get a float in return, and that's what's going to get placed in my average. And then I'm going to print student, and we'll do average call it right there, right? So dot format, I'm going to send it the key, and I'm going to send it the average. So there we go. Our student James has an average of 56. Our student Jenny has an average of 92, and our student James has an average of 89. And again, we did this with just 3 lines here. All right, so we could have taken this formula and we could have put that here instead of the average, and then put it down into 2 lines. But again, this might be a little bit more readable, and maybe you had wanted to put a comment above this so that you can say, hey, oh, this is the average based on whatever, so you can kind of explain what this formula does and what have it. So again, just wanted to kind of demonstrate, you know, some of the cool little neat tricks that you can do with dictionaries. using just some of the built-in methods that are here for a dictionary, right? So we didn't cover every single method in here, but you kind of get a feel for, you know, the power of using these. And so I suggest, you know, you go back and use the help command, look at some of those other methods, play around with them, get some experience with it. We ended up using a very easy to read kind of dictionary. But let's say we didn't have to do it that way. Let's say we actually we'll get rid of student right now, and we'll recreate student, and in here we'll place James, and inside of here we'll say James age. James is 15. Grades. You got 100, you got a 65, you got an 85. And we'll specify whether he's an honor student. So now our dictionary contains another dictionary. And so again, to kind of dig through that, we would do student James, just like we did before, but this time now we're going to specify his age. And we get his age back, and I hit some extra buttons there. If I wanted his grades, put grades. If I wanted whether he's an honor student, right? So you can see that, I mean, you could potentially nest quite a few things in here and build a little bit of extra flexibility into your dictionary. But obviously those are all valuable ways of doing things. It really depends on how you want to retrieve it and how difficult you want it to be to dig down in. Obviously this isn't, I mean, we're just going down 2 levels, so that's not too difficult. But again, you start adding more levels on here and it gets a little bit tricky as to how many things you have to reference to get down to the value that you want. So again, this is Dictionaries. I hope you found it a little bit useful. I sure do. And looking forward to the next topic. Thanks.